Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it is time to talk expectations, which is always fun because we get to just talk about it and then someone else has to go out and do it. And if they don't do it, well, they have failed to live up to our expectations. So really, all the pressure is on other people. So this is one of my favorite kinds of shows.
Yeah, and also, if our expectations are not exactly and they don't match, yes, you can blame the player, but also nobody's going back and looking. Nobody's going to go back and check to see our numbers, which, again, it's a great way to live. Nobody has to check us, and then we don't have to point out that we weren't the wrong people that were in the wrong. It was a player underperforming or overperforming. Either way, don't do it. It's that's on the player. So today we're going to talk about Brandon Inniss, who is back for his second year as a starter, his senior year. And honestly, I'd say it's his contract year, and it is, but that could mean two different things: either NFL or coming back to Ohio State as a fifth year senior, assuming everything goes through with the 5 for 5, which everything is pointing that way, but it's not necessarily ratified yet. But when we talk about expectations, you have to look back at what he did last year. And I don't even want to call last year baseline. It shouldn't. It's like whatever is 25% below the baseline. Last year, 36 catches for 271 yards and 3 touchdowns, 7.53 yards per reception, which I would not be surprised if that is the lowest in Ohio State football history for a starting wide receiver or any wide receiver who has caught at least, say, 20 passes. It's not a good number. And that part, if the 36 reception stays the same, that's absolutely fine. The numbers, the receiving yards, they need to almost, I don't want to say double, but get close to doubling.
Yeah, if you told me before last season that Brandon Inniss was going to finish with 271 receiving yards, I would have said, "Wow, did he get hurt in
Mm-hmm.
mid-October?" And no, he played the whole season. And this feels like we're talking down about him. And I will tell you, Brandon Inniss himself this spring talked about the fact that he did not do what he wanted to do last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was not play to his level of expectation last year, and I don't think it was played to the level of the expectation of the coaching staff either. This he just did not put together. He had some opportunities, and there were certainly chances where he was maybe running open, and there were opportunities for bigger plays, and the ball didn't get thrown his way for one reason or another. But the opportunities that he did get, like he made some big plays. This was not like he had a bad season, but there were plays where he had a lot of. I remember several where it's like he made a really crucial first down catch
Mm-hmm.
right on the sideline, and it was 3rd and 5, and he got 6 yards. Which, yeah, that's a very big 6 yards. That also drags down your yards per catch average a little bit. But there was one I can remember where he was coming across the middle and he had to reach out for a ball a little bit and kind of caught it and did a little bit of a somersault, and that obviously will limit you to 0 yards after catch. But this year he's got to find a way to do more, and he will tell you the same thing. He knows he needs to do more, and to your point, if he has 36 catches again this year, I think that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to be 36 catches for 400 and something yards, not 270 something yards.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at his game log last year. He had 2 games where he was over 10 yards a catch. One was 3 for 34, which was 11.3 against Washington. The other was 4 catches for 41 yards, which is 10.3 yards per reception against Penn State. Like, this is against Miami, 4 for 34, against Indiana, 1 for 5, against Michigan, 2 for 12. These are running back numbers on carries that we're talking about. J.K. Dobbins averaged 7.2 yards a carry in as a true freshman, and we're talking 7.5 yards a reception. So some of that is what routes is he being allowed to run, and what is the purpose of those routes, and also why is he not running more explosive routes? Is he not explosive enough to do that? Is this? It's like, well, why would we have him do that? It's not going to work out. So we know they can put up big numbers in the slot because we've seen, gosh, Emeka Ibuka leaves Ohio State as the all-time leading receiver, and Jackson Smith and Jigba leaves it in the single season record. Those guys were slot receivers, and we've seen year over year Paris Campbell, 91, 92 receptions as a slot receiver. So like Philly Brown was the slot receiver, caught 60 passes for 2 years in a row. This is Curtis Samuel. Like this is a very, very productive position where you're not just averaging 11 yards a catch, you're averaging more than that. And the matchups, you should be able to take advantage of them. And really, they weren't able to take advantage of matchups last year. And like you said, we're not picking on Brandon Inniss because he said this spring he's worked on run after the catch and being more explosive and has put the time in to be a guy that can be counted on. And then you catch the ball, you do something with it. So I would expect that to be apparent this season. Now, when we did this show earlier in the spring, or actually in the winter, in fact, we did not do a Brandon Inniss expectation show in the wintertime. I don't want to disappoint you. So I went back and I was trying to find, like, well, what did we expect for him? And we didn't have anything. But I do have numbers here written down, and I did this without actually thinking about what he did last year in terms of his actual number of receptions. But last year, 36 for 271 and 3 touchdowns. The numbers that I have for him this year: 35 catches, 418 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And I feel like I might have hit a trifecta exactly on that one, Tom.
That feels very, very realistic. I think that feels like that would be a. I think that would be a good season for him. Where, yeah, I'm sure he wants to have 1,000 yards, but if he puts together that kind of a season where you're a little bit more productive, you're a little bit more in terms of the yards per catch, but also probably a little bit more in the yards after catch. That was something that you mentioned that he talked about this spring, but that was something that Ryan Day talked about this spring as well, that they need to get more from these guys after the catch. If you're putting up those numbers, that's probably a really solid year. And this is not a that does not get you in the first round of the NFL draft, but that's a productive season that probably, if he does that and he's the biggest yardage receiver this year, I think that's a pretty good season, a pretty good number for him. Where Jeremiah Smith's going to have presumably a lot more than that. I think there's a possibility that Chris Henry has more than that. I think take your pick of Devin McEwen
Mm-hmm.
or Kyle Parker probably has more than that. But if he finishes in that range, I think that's a really solid season for him. And there is certainly an opportunity for more. We have seen him be a deep play threat. 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, goodness, he had the one catch in his freshman season for 58 yards against Purdue. So you have seen him go deep before. You have seen him, if you can run a drag route and just get led the correct amount and just turn the corner, you can find some space, because the defenses are going to be keying on Jeremiah Smith quite a bit. So there is going to potentially be some space there for you as well. So I think those are good numbers. I don't really have anything. I don't have anything that jumps out to me as, boy, I think you're really off there. If anything, I would maybe bump the touchdowns up one or two, go from 4 to 5, 4 to 6, something like that. Because I think you saw towards the end of last season, he had a touchdown against Rutgers. He had a touchdown against Michigan in the red zone. I think that he's someone who he is. We've spent this whole show talking about, well, he didn't do this very well last year. He didn't do that very well last year. He is real sure-handed. He's made a lot of tough catches in traffic. He's made a lot of contested catches. I think he's someone that they can trust to make catches in the end zone. So I would go maybe a little bit higher on the touchdowns, but the numbers on the whole, I think those are fair.
Yeah, and you're right. He is sure-handed. That's why he is also their punt returner. He was effective as the punt returner. I expect him to continue to be the punt returner. I think maybe the other biggest thing in terms of his production is just where is he in the progression? What route is he running? Is Julian Sayin looking for him? And I think Julian Sayin gets grief from some fans because he was not looking for Brandon Inniss, and it's like, well, where in the progression is he? Because rarely is he going to be above Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate, right? And how often are those guys both, like, one of them's not open? So it's like, yeah, Brandon Inniss is running wide open, but you know what? The ball is going to the first or the second read. And can they move him up in the progression? because, well, even if they don't, you're going to have the fewer times this year where the first and the second read are, one of them is going to be open because Carnell Tate is no longer in the picture. So that's going to make the third option more viable in terms of the progression. So maybe that will alone help his numbers. So what do you guys think of Brandon Inniss this season? What are you expecting? Go ahead and throw your notes, your predictions, your expectations in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening and you want to join on YouTube, you can do that at youtube.com/at Buckeye Insiders. And if you want to talk about it all day long with us, you can do that at Buckeye Insiders now, at BuckeyeInsiders.com. Now join up and talk to us there about whatever is on your mind. That will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.